What do you say we find out exactly just how fast this saw really is? It's impressive on video, but we've never tacked it. So is it just one of those things where it looks good, but it's really not? Let's find out, but first we got to do a couple of things here. All right, so we need to start dialing in a fast round ground chain for this saw, because when I take it to Sawfest, it has to be running a round chain. I can't run square. So I'm going to set the angles up a bit aggressive, and in my experience, a 25,000th raker is too much for these angles. So we'll see how things turn out with this sharpening, but it might take a few sharpenings to get her dialed in just right. But we're going to start it out with 55 degrees up here on the head tilt. We've got her 35 degrees across, and the 10-degree tilt function is being used. This is some of the stuff that I find is pointless if you run anything bigger than a 20-inch bar. It just sucks, really. It's actually better on 16-inch bars, but you know, you can get away with it somewhat on a 20-inch bar. It tends to get a little funky in the wood, if you know what I mean. It takes a little bit of practice. But I also find that a 25,000th raker is a little deep for it. But we're going to start getting this chain dialed in, and that's what we're going to go with for today. Let's see how bad it sucks, right? This is what she looks like after the grind. As you can see, I still haven't touched the rakers at all. I want to get them up closer to 20,000th. So it's from here out, it's sharpening without touching the rakers until I get to that point. There's what she looks like from the hook side. As you can see, let's put her into some wood and see how she does. And see if this saw is really as fast as it looks. All right, so I got the tack in hand. Got my screwdriver because we're probably gonna have to do some tuning. We're gonna see where the sweet spot is on the tune, like where the saw is the fastest at, where it really wants to live. So far, all the tuning that I've done has just been kind of like a feel, you know? But today, we're gonna kind of look at it a little closer and see where this saw really wants to be at. So it's like if I remember correctly, it's a 98 roof with 124th transfer timing, which would put us at what, 28 degrees of blowdown. So, you know, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different to what you would typically see folks do. And this is just kind of like the way I like my saws to be. This is the way, these are the kind of the numbers that I like to use, but you have to grind them in a different manner. You know, you got to use different techniques in your grinding to do numbers like this. So, you know what I mean? It's a different style altogether. But let's go ahead and give her a run. We'll see if this chain's any good. Hopefully it's at least cuts. You know what I mean? It could be good. It could be bad. It could be awesome. It could be terrible. You never know. We're going to be finding that information out, as well as trying to figure out where exactly this saw wants to live on the tune. So here we go. I wasn't happy with the results of this video, so stay tuned. I'm working on some modifications right now. It's not done yet, but I just fired it up and there is a very noticeable difference. So yeah, we might have just got more out of it. It's the way it mounts down here. It's not strong enough to hold the weight. She's coming off on me. So I gotta make it stronger down here. Almost there though. Well, it started raining on me. That's all right, because I think I got what I needed. So we're going to talk about the chain, we're going to talk about the wood, and we're going to talk about the saw. What should we talk about first? The wood. Let's talk about the wood. So when I first started cutting, we were at that hollow part of the wood where all the ants were living, and had to give them kind of an eviction notice. But while I was cutting that piece, the chain it performed horribly. It wasn't until I got past that section of the wood that something changed about the wood, that the saw just started gliding through the cut a lot better. It was night and day difference. So we continued to go ahead and make a few cuts there, but then I went to the other side of the wood to make some more cuts. And the reason I did that is because I want to compare this chain to what it was before this. We're going to pull up some of the older footage that we were cutting on this same piece of wood, and we're going to do a comparison now to see which chain is actually faster, because I'm not 100% certain this chain is faster. The self-feed function of the chain, how well it pulls itself through the wood, went through the roof tremendously. I don't have to use those dogs at all, which is a good thing for a race, because you don't really want to use the dogs. They can get in the way. You can get hung up on the piece of wood, and it can cause you to stutter. So not having to use the dogs at all is a plus. What you were seeing there, it was self-feeding so aggressively that, it was almost 100% the chain pulling that saw through the wood. I really wasn't doing anything but hang on for the ride. The question is whether or not it was actually faster. So we're gonna have to do a comparison here in a second. Now the RPM of the saw, it seems to want to live at around 12,500 RPM. Maybe a little under that. The chain it's pulling harder than it should. And that's because, you know, the raker is a little bit too deep. I need to keep sharpening it like this until I get it to where it's about a 20,000th raker. And I think when that's done, she's going to settle in at about 12,500 RPM cutting. But right now, once I start applying the pressure and stuff, she's dropping down closer to like 12,000 RPM. We'll see where things settle out as we get this thing dialed in a little closer. But currently, I'm pretty certain we're going to end up with a saw that cuts at around 12,500 RPM. And that is pretty respectable. I could get more RPM. I took the saw to this point, and this is the point that I don't think I'm going to go any further. We'll see down in the future. I might try to tweak it and get it cutting at around 13,000 RPM. Anyway, enough rambling here. Let's compare this chain to what it was before to what it is now. Alrighty? So on the clip, it appeared as though it was actually faster before than what it is now. The thing you probably didn't notice is that the wood now is about 2 inches larger than it was whenever I made those cuts before. So I'm willing to bet we're probably running at about the exact same speed now as what we were before. But here's what actually is different. You see, before, it didn't have a tremendous amount of self-feed, which is why you always saw me cutting it, pushing it through the cut, forcing it through, you know, because it could take it. This saw's got enough torque that it can take it, so I was forcing it through the cut, you know what I mean? But now, it's all self-feed. I'm not doing any forcing at all. It's all self-feed. So I guess the question is, did we really make an improvement, or did we just kind of leave things where they were, or what really happened here? And I think the thing that really happened here is I took the need to dog it through the wood, to force it through the cut, and eliminated it. And I took it and put all of that function of pushing it through the wood or forcing it through the wood, and I put it into the chain to where it does it by itself. You see, if I would have done like this here session was more of a self-feeding session, where before I was forcing it through the cut. So if I would have made a video, a comparison before showing, you know, a self-feed of the cut, then you would notice a difference. The difference you're seeing here today is that before I was forcing it through the cut, and now I'm at a point where I'm self-feeding it through the cut. If I try to force it through the cut now, it's not really going to pick up a lot of cut time because, you know, just because of how hard it is pulling the saw, and I'll end up losing more RPM that it'll kind of slow it down, really. So that's the difference here of how the chain is performing now as to what it was like before. My personal opinion here is that it's hard to say. It's one of those things that in a way it's good, in a way it's not. So I'm probably going to play with this chain a little bit more, try to get it to cut well with less self-feed. I want I want the saw to have a lot of self-feed, but I don't want this much. So I think I'm gonna do something here to help take away some of that self-feed, and maybe in the meantime, we'll pick up some cutting speed. You see, whenever I first started making the cuts, I knew instantly that the chain wasn't going to be super fast or anything, but I thought, you know what, this will be a great video to show how sometimes running these more aggressive angles really don't help you much at all. Sometimes all you're doing is changing the way it feels, making you think it's faster when actually it's not. So that's one of the things, you know, we got to consider here. But we did learn one thing, and that is that by running these angles, we increased the self-feeding ability of the chain tremendously. So maybe something in the halfway point is where we need to go. We'll see. We'll have to play with the chain a little bit more. Anyway, hey, I hope you enjoyed this one, and we'll catch you on the next one. Later.